Time for radical candor?
I love that phrase. I think if you don't mind, I'll use it.
Hillary Clinton, public and private. On the eve of a new book, her first one-on-one network interview with Diane Sawyer.
You're not looking at me thinking, here she is asking these questions.
No, because
again.
I knew you would. I knew you'd have to.
Cameras in her Washington home for the first time. Nothing off limits.
It matters. Age matters.
Well,
And what's the truth about what they told her about that health scare?
the good news is, the bad news is,
Tough, revealing.
Because that phrase that keeps getting used, scripted, cautious.
I'm done with that. I mean, I'm just done.
What she really thinks about President Obama.
Why did you lose?
What happened on her watch as Secretary of State under attack over Benghazi.
What difference at this point does it make?
Did you miss the moment to prevent this from happening?
Her marriage now, and Monica Lewinsky resurfaces.
Monica Lewinsky is back in the news.
That's, not something that I spent a lot of time thinking about.
Really?
And the hardest choice she faces now, is there really any chance she won't run for president?
Is the White House yours to lose?
The public, the private. Tonight, Hillary Clinton talks about it all.
The legacy of Hillary Clinton is...
Here now, Diane Sawyer.
Good evening and welcome to the interview with former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Tonight, probably the most talked about woman in America, about to decide whether to run for president again, and at this moment, heralded as the clear frontrunner over every other likely candidate. As you know, she has been standing center stage in this nation for 20 years, polls showing she's one of the most admired people and powerful, but also polarizing. So we know all of you watching will have an opinion on who she really is, and we expect to be hearing from you throughout the night online. But as we sit down with her now, we begin as she did in her new book, Hard Choices. 6 years ago, the end of the longest primary race in history, and candidate Hillary Clinton has just gone down in a shattering defeat.
It was personally painful, a sense of real loss and disappointment.
Well, this isn't exactly the party I planned, but
My mother's crying, and my husband's looking very sad, and my daughter's looking very sad.
although we weren't able to shatter that highest, hardest glass ceiling this time, thanks to you, it's got about 18 million cracks in it.
And I did feel like I had let people down. Honestly, a lot of women and girls who had invested their hopes in me, but men and boys as well, across the country.
That was the heart of the suffering?
It was.
Depression?
No, just a deep
Never
regret.
really?
No, that's not how I react.
But Hillary Clinton, who had once seemed inevitable, was reeling, bruised, and beaten, as Barack Obama smiled that big smile.
Why did you lose?
I think because I really didn't have a good strategy for my campaign. I didn't plan it the right way.
What do you mean?
As a candidate who was already so well known, I don't think I ever said, yes, you may have known me for 8 years, but I don't take anything for granted. I have to earn your support.
This is very personal for me. It's not just political.
I think my campaign got into gear, frankly, after I got so badly beaten in Iowa. And I went to New Hampshire and just worked my heart out along with everybody who was supporting me.
Too late?
I think it was too late.
And we now know from her new book that right after the defeat, she sped to a secret meeting with the winner. She was lying down in the back seat of a car, hiding from the press, and she says that first meeting was like an awkward first date.
And you had Chardonnay.
California Chardonnay. And it was like an awkward first date. Now, obviously, I had known him for several years, but the campaign was so intense. And our staffs and our supporters were really at odds with each other. I don't think we ever felt that way about each other.
Oh, yes, you did.
No, not really, Diane.
Hillary,
Barack, I did not say anything about Ronald Reagan. You said two things. You talked about admiring Ronald Reagan, and you talked about the ideas of the Republicans. I didn't talk about Ronald Reagan.
What can you say to the voters who seem to like Barack Obama more?
Well, that hurts my feelings.
You're likable enough.
Thank you
Hillary,
so
much.
The book now reveals that in the first meeting between Obama and Clinton, they spoke of lingering resentments. How angry Bill Clinton was at what he thought was the preposterous charge of racism, and how wearing it was for her, the constant attention to her clothes, her appearance. even though at the time she put on a brave face.
I admire what Senator Clinton has done for America. Not sure about that coat.
I actually like Hillary's jacket. I don't know what's wrong with it.
I was not as effective calling it out during that campaign either, because there is a double standard. We live with a double standard, and people ought to think about their own daughters, their own sisters, their own mothers when they make comments about women in public life.
Thank you for coming. I love your outfit.
Well, I love your outfit, but I
thank you.
do want the earrings back.
Oh, okay.
Tonight, at her home in Washington, Hillary Clinton says after 20 years in public life, she is finally living her own schedule, her own thoughts on her own terms. The polls may show her way ahead, but does she want to go through it again? She insists she hasn't made up her mind. Do you believe her?
When are you going to decide whether you're running for president?
I'm going to decide when it feels right for me to decide, because...
Still by the end of this year?
Well, certainly not before then. I just want to kind of get through this year, travel around the country, help in the midterm elections in the fall, and then take a deep breath and kind of go through my pluses and minuses about what I will and will not be thinking about as I make the decision.
But probably not announced until next year?
I'm not positive about that, but that's probably likely.
We know all of the currents that
Right.
might be driving you to say yes.
Right.
What is the strongest reason to say no?
Well, because I really like my life. I like what I'm doing. I'm thrilled about becoming a grandmother in the fall. I have lots of hopes for what that means to me and my family.
Can you savor being a grandmother and be president?
Of course, men have been serving in that position, being fathers and grandfathers since the beginning of the Republic. But I want to know how I feel. I mean, you have one life to live. This is it. It's not a dress rehearsal.
The women and girls, she says, were counting on her. Tonight, there is a Ready for Hillary super PAC, which plays Katy Perry's Roar. It has raised $6 million. And no other candidate is coming forward, so is it fair that while she decides, she's in effect holding the party hostage?
I am so appreciative of everybody who's encouraging me. I'm grateful that they have that confidence in me. But this is a really personal decision.
I know it's a personal decision, but if you can do it, do you have to do it?
I have to make the decision that's right for me and the country.
But
and
is the
I
party
have to make
frozen in place, waiting for you to
No,
make it?
I mean, no. People can do whatever they choose to do on whatever timetable they decide.
Barbara Bush has said, enough with the Clintons and the Bushes, the Clintons and the Bushes. Yeah. It's just getting silly, she said. Do you feel some of that?
I don't, because this is a democracy. People get to choose their leaders.
Is the White House yours to lose?
Well, I don't think so, because if I were to decide to pursue it, I would be working as hard as any underdog or any newcomer, because I don't want to take anything for granted if I decide to do it.
And what does she do about the focus on her appearance that she says once kept her so on guard?
Scripted, cautious,
right,
safe.
Well, but I think
armored.
And I understand why some people might have seen that or certainly attributed that, because when you're in the spotlight as a woman, you know you're being judged constantly. I mean, it is just never ending, and you get a little, worried about, okay, well, people over on this side are loving what I'm wearing, looking like, saying, people over on this side aren't. And how, your natural tendency is, how do you bring people together so that you can better communicate? I'm done with that. I mean, I'm just done.
You said you're just over it.
I am over it. I think I have changed. Not worry so much about what other people are thinking. And my view is, I have lived an incredibly blessed life. I've had so many wonderful experiences. And I'm going to say what I know, what I believe, and let the chips fall.
Time for radical candor?
I love that phrase. I think if you don't mind, I'll use it. Well, but I think for me, it's time. I don't know that I could have done it earlier, because I was certainly trying to find my way.
But what has not changed is the Republicans clearly think their big fight is against her. Republican powerhouse Karl Rove already tried to launch a salvo, saying he thought maybe she had ongoing effects from a kind of brain trauma. after that big headline-making fall last December, causing a concussion.
How is your health?
It's very good, thank you.
How serious was it?
It was, I think a serious concussion.
You had trouble with vision.
Because of the force of the fall, I had double vision for a short period of time, and I had some dizziness.
Did you have trouble talking?
No.
She says for a couple of weeks she was dizzy on bed rest and got an MRI for a checkup, and with that, news of a second blow.
Well, can I tell you, that was the scary point. I go into the MRI machine, I do that. Then I go into a conference room, and my husband and my daughter and son-in-law are there, and all these doctors. So here's what they say. They say, the good news is the concussion is totally resolving. Like we told you, it's going to be fine. The bad news is you've developed a clot behind your right ear, and you must immediately go to the hospital because we have to immediately put you on blood thinners. So I was there for 3 days, and then got out.
So blood thinners now?
Blood thinners, yeah.
For life?
Probably, but I don't mind because I don't ever want to have to go through that again.
She points out a few weeks after the concussion, we saw her testify before Congress. And once again, she's traveling nonstop around the country.
So no lingering effects?
No lingering effects.
Of any kind?
No. Nope.
You would release your medical records if you ran for president?
I would do what other candidates have done, absolutely.
And what would you like to say to Karl Rove about your brain?
That I know he was called Bush's brain in one of the books written about him, and I wish him well.